And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another disappointing but still incredibly proud episode of the Doing the Work postgame show. As today, your three-seeded Indiana Hoosiers came up short in their Sweet 16 round game of the NCAA tournament against the UConn Huskies, losing 58-75. This ends Indiana's really fantastic and successful season with a record of 24-9. And I'm your host, Kathy Amos, along here with my co-host, Shawn Cron. And today we'll break it all down for you on this edition of Doing the Work, the new show on the Back Home Network that's dedicated to covering IU women basketball. But we're going to start this game how we start every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And I'm going to actually, for me, I'm going to go back to 2 o'clock Eastern time or 1 o'clock Central, which is the tip-off of this game. And to me, that was our banner moment. You know, the game was really a struggle for us. It was not a good matchup. You know, UConn is just an incredibly deep and talented team, and we struggled really from, we had a good first quarter there, but first half of the quarter, and then after that, UConn really struggled or had their way with us. So for me, that tip-off was the banner moment for us because we got to the Sweet 16, and maybe it didn't accomplish what the team had as their goals, but I certainly, for one, as an Indiana women's basketball fan, consider this an absolutely successful season, and having that tip off into the Sweet 16 was our banner moment. This was our second in a row, Sweet 16, second in a row. This was only the second time ever that we had reached the Sweet 16 since they've gone to a field of 64. And as a program, this is only our third time overall that we've reached the Sweet 16. Now, compare that with UConn. UConn has, I think we all know, a storied program, and this was their 28th consecutive Sweet 16 game. 28th consecutive. And they're in Bridgeport, which, as I think we all know, for those of us that watched the game, was essentially a home crowd for UConn. And so for me, we showed up, and those women never quit on the floor, even to the very last buzzer, when after, the writing seemed to be on the wall. They kept fighting and they kept scrapping. And to me, the tip-off for this was absolutely our banner moment of the game. So making it to this game was just such a huge accomplishment. And I hope our women are all in the locker room right now and hanging their head very high and keeping their shoulders back and being proud of what they accomplished this year, because I know for me, I am very proud of them. And as always, our banner moment today is brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel. This is their first season as the presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. And Home Field has been very busy during this tournament, including a some St. Peter's t-shirts and some joggers, actually, who just knocked off the Purdue men yesterday in the NCAA tournament. They also released some IU joggers last week after the IU women's win over Princeton. Although they might be sold out, I would encourage you to go and check it out. So also, when you go out to homefield.com, you'll go to the IU collection and you'll find a t-shirt that commemorates the women's 1983 season, which is when the Indiana women won the Big Ten tournament, Big Ten title, and made their first NCAA tournament. Also, if you support other college teams or have people in your life who do, Home Field probably has something for them too. They have now more than 120 different schools. But no matter what you buy, you'll be comfortable and the colors will last through many washings. Plus, you'll be supporting an Indiana-based company that came up through Kelly. And what could be better than that? Plus, if you haven't bought from Home Field before, you can go to homefield.com and use our promo code HOME, HOME, to get 15% off your first order. Again, that's homefieldapparel.com. So wear one for the team. Okay, now it is time to move the ball, find the open player, and get some thoughts from the rest of our team. And again, today, Jeff is still out of the country, and Shawn is still filling in admirably from the bench. And for that, we'll kick him over to you, Shawn. What's your Shawn summation for today?
Yes, from the bench. That's a good. Let's start there. Today's game, it wasn't our best game, but we knew that we were facing an uphill battle going against a storied franchise like you had mentioned earlier, the UConn Huskies. They are a great team, and so we were going to need to have one of our best games, and unfortunately that didn't happen today. we'll get into the numbers a little bit later on, but we are going to have to win the rebounding battle and cut down on the turnovers and just have a all around good game, and that just didn't happen today. But as you mentioned, I am very proud of these ladies. It was a lot of fun watching them this year, and I'm gonna miss some of these players as they go on and go on to their future without basketball, I guess. So
yeah, at least Indiana basketball.
Yes, Indiana basketball.
All right. Well, as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's loss to UConn today, we will point out maybe a few meaningful moments. I don't think we'll belabor the game a whole lot today, but we'll point out maybe a couple of moments from the game. We might point out a couple of numbers I think the are quite probably obvious for, again, those who watch the game. What was kind of our shortcomings or our downfall today, but we'll talk about it a little bit. Most likely we'll talk more big picture about, the season overall, as well as maybe a couple of things that we might have coming up on the docket for everybody. But you are listening to the Doing the Work post-game show. Again, my name is Kathy Amos. I'm here with my co-host, Sean Cron, and we're talking about that loss, the season-ending loss in the NCAA Sweet 16. I want to keep reiterating that. That was handed to us today from UConn, beating us 58-75. So it is time, though, for our meaningful moments. Perhaps you missed, and yeah, Sean, let's just pick out a couple, if we can, from each of our players. We did end up with 8 people technically getting in and playing today. So let's pick out maybe a couple from each player if we have something. So maybe I think the best place to start, instead of going quarter by quarter, let's just talk about a couple from some people. You want to start with Allie Patberg and see if you have any written down from her?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Allie had a great game today. She, from 3-point land, she was 2 of 3. I believe I'm trying to look through my notes here, but in the second quarter, was when she really started turning it on. At the 9:28 mark, she hit her first 3-pointer, and then shortly after that, she came down at the 6:30 mark and hit her second 3-pointer, which put her in double figures for the day already. So she did a great job overall, leading the team, and it was her leadership today that I think was helping Indiana along. And unfortunately, the team just fell a little short.
Yeah, I had that same thing where we opened up that second quarter with a defensive rebound, and then UConn fouled us, and then Allie hit that 3 to really open that second quarter for us. And then right after that, Allie hit yet another second 3 to end a UConn run that became kind of a theme, I think, of today, where they were on a 6-0 run at that point in the second quarter, and Allie made that 3 to put us within 3 at 24-27. How about for Mackenzie Holmes? Do you have anything for Mackenzie you want to talk through?
Yeah, I thought Mackenzie there again in the second quarter at the 3:08 mark, actually at 3:30 mark, she ended up hitting 2 free throws, and then shortly after that, she had a block on Edwards. Unfortunately, they couldn't get the ball, and it stopped there. But I think with Mackenzie, there were some missed layups today, I think, that we would have liked to seen go down. But looking back on the season with everything she had to go through, I think she had a fair game today.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of my banner moments our opening moments I had was from the very first opening, where we opened with a tip out on defense to Nicole Cardano Hillary, who got a steal there. Who then went down on the other end of the court to get it down to Mac down low, and she was able to score there for us. And I think you were talking about how we really opened the game, where we were hitting Mac really hard and had a lot of points in the paint in the first few minutes. And then after that, it just seemed like UConn was able to change their game plan, in the middle of that first quarter, really. We opened that first quarter 10-8, being up 2, and we just really kind of struggled, it seemed like, thereafter, although, we would only end up down by 3 in that first quarter. But, it seemed like we were really going to go after to Mackenzie quite often. She did end up with 12 points, so had a nice night, but it came pretty hard on 5 of 10 shooting, which, again, for Mackenzie, those were all fairly down low. It was just a hard fought game for her today. I thought defensively for Mackenzie too, it was just a tough matchup for her down low. And you could see that coming out in the second half where, they switched Golbe onto Edwards. And it seemed to slow her down at least some in that second half. But boy, this, UConn just really had a lot of size on us today. And I thought it was just kind of a tough matchup all around for Mackenzie. Anything overall though from Mackenzie's game today?
Like you said, I mean, I think, you could tell that there's sometimes that she was a little tired today, going up against, Edwards, quite a bit, down low. But she did have some nice looks, some nice baskets. I just, and she did have she led the team in rebounds today with 6 rebounds. So, and ended up with 12 points.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Grace a little bit. So today was just a hard game for Grace. And I don't want to say it was a bad game for Grace because I don't necessarily think it was a bad game for Grace. I think it was a planned out defensive game from UConn that you could tell they were really focusing on not letting Grace have that mid-range jumper that she usually has. Grace ended up with only 2 points in the second half. She did end up with 13 overall for the game. But it just seemed like she was just everything that she was trying to get it was just hard for Grace today. And I think this, again, with an eye to the future, I think we all realize if we look at our starters, we are losing next year Alexa Golbe, Nicole Cardano-Hillary, and Allie Patberg next year. We don't know who's coming in. Obviously, we know one transfer coming in. We don't know how the new recruits are going to fit in. We don't know who of our current team is going to improve. But I think this is something that Grace should really think about, really going back and watching how UConn game planned against her. Because I think that next year is most likely something she is going to see a lot more of. So I think it wasn't necessarily that Grace had a bad game per se. I thought she fought really hard. A lot of, a couple of moments I wrote down, like in the third quarter where she got a nice pull-up J about 4.5 minutes there. She was driving the ball and trying to do what she could. It just was not an easy game for Grace today.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not that she necessarily had a bad game. It was just UConn's defense. They were denying her everything, and they were really forcing the rest of the team to beat them. And until the fourth quarter, or late in the third quarter, fourth quarter, that's when Grace really started to find some openings and get her shots. But until that game, I mean, until that time, they really did a good job of locking her down.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, moving on to our next player, starter, I think maybe we'll talk about Nicole, if that's all right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So Nicole, again, I thought defensively it was, she was put on, at least I know at the beginning of the game, she was put on to Beckers, who, for those of you who might not know about UConn per se, Beckers was last year's player of the year, both in Naismith and the AP player of the year. She was a freshman last year. She was the first freshman to ever get player of the year on both sides. And then earlier this year, she hurt her knee and was out for 19 games. So she's been working her way back in, but still one of UConn's most potent players. And Nicole had that matchup. And, for the most part, I thought she did a fine job. I mean, Beckers ended up with 15 points. But UConn ended up with 4 people with double digits, and one of them just a point shy of getting double digit scoring. So I think defensively, it was just a rough game all around for our team. And again, I attribute that mostly to matchups. We can talk about maybe some other factors later, but mostly I'm going to attribute that to just, it was some matchup troubles for us. But I thought overall Nicole was, again, kind of a pest. She led the team again with steals. We talked about one of them earlier. She ended up with 3 steals on the night. And overall, I think Nikki, again, just brought her usual effort and hustle today. I don't have anything specific other than at the 1 minute left mark in the third quarter, Nikki got one of those 3 steals. She went on a great fast break down with Allie on a 2-on-1. She dished it off to Allie. Allie didn't have the shot, and right back to Nikki, and Nikki went up for 2. And that made it at that point 44-59. Late in that third quarter. But gosh, I thought that was just such a fun play. And so again, we've talked about the basketball IQ of this team. That was the great example of basketball IQ, I thought, from the team, because it was a perfectly executed fast break from the 2 of them, Nikki and Allie.
Yeah, I thought Nikki had a great day, and and it started off from the very beginning, because very first play almost at the 9:35 mark, she got a steal right away, and got it to Mac, and for our first bucket of the game, and then like a minute later at the 8:18 mark, she got her second steal already. So I mean, she was really, really aggressive from the very beginning, and throughout the day. And like you had said, she was her typical pesky defense, again. And one of the plays that I loved seeing was, I forget if it was in the third or fourth quarter, but there was a loose ball, and there was a UConn player going after it, and Alexa and Nicole were both on the floor going after it, and Alexa and the UConn player were grabbing with it with their hands, and Nicole had it with her feet, was grabbing it with her feet. And I thought it was just, just symbolizes her aggressiveness, her never say die or never say quit attitude. And, whether she's laying on the floor and, trying to play with her feet, she's going to try to play.
Yeah, absolutely agree. She's always fun to watch, and it's sad that we won't see her in an Indiana uniform at least anymore going forward. So, and then our last starter we haven't touched on is Alexa Golbe. Alexa, also her last game in an Indiana uniform. She's heading back to Europe, I think, and going to try her hand over there in the professional ranks over there. Again, Alexa is from Europe originally, Latvia, so it makes a lot of sense with all of her family for her to forego her last year that she could have if she had wanted it. But she's got her degree and stuff. And then again, just another player that always puts her heart out there for us to watch, and she never disappoints, and I don't think she did today either. Again, I thought this was a really tough matchup for Alexa. I'd mentioned earlier how, at the second half that it seemed we were trying something a little different on defense, and we put her down on Edwards. It was just such a hard matchup for her as well, and I think she did what she could. Alexa in particular, I thought was the victim of some very poor officiating today.
Victim is appropriate. Yeah. She was mugged a couple times.
Oh my goodness. What did we have? That 20-second stretch where she was fouled trying to get a defensive rebounds, and then the gal going down the other way, towards the other end of the floor was holding her, and then ended up throwing her down on the floor, and not a single one of those were ended up called on. I think that was on Edwards as well.
Yeah.
Right.
All three of them. Yeah.
All 3 things committed by one player on UConn within probably a 20-second span. So again, I think Alexa was just fighting through a lot of, she was undersized on trying to guard Edwards, and then, gosh, I'm not going to blame this loss on the officials by any stretch of the imagination. I think there were a lot of things we didn't do to help ourselves, but they really absolutely didn't do a whole lot to help our cause today. But overall, Alexa, again, she ended up with 5 rebounds for us and 7 points. And really, you're not going to be able to just look at her stat line and know what she contributed today, because her things that she contributes, like usual, just don't show up in the stats.
Right. And, the one play that I think everybody is going to remember is that the shot that she hit, the 3-pointer to end the first half of that game. I mean, it was
0.1 second.
Yeah. It was an incredible shot, and I was thankful that the refs didn't overturn that. I was worried that they were, but it was a great play there to end the half. Like you had said, I mean, her stat line isn't gonna say, show how she played today. I mean, she really played her heart out today, and gonna miss seeing her next year.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we covered all of our starters, which is probably the bulk of what we need to talk about. We can just maybe touch very quickly on our bench. It was a very short bench. I thought we went to the bench pretty early on into the game. Mainly, though, only Keandra Brown and Chloe Moore McNeil got significant time. Caitlin Peterson and Grace Wagner did end up getting in the game. Caitlin did have a free throw. Peterson's free throw ended up being our sole bench point for today. So it just wasn't a game again for our bench. Again, it just shows the depth of UConn. If you look at them, they had 9 players play and 8 of them scored. And just contrasting again where we're at in our journey as a program to where UConn has been at. You're playing again a program that has 28 years of history in the Sweet 16 against ours where we have 2 years, right, unless you go back to the one before we had a full 64 teams. But overall, I think this was just a struggle from our bench. Again, Chloe, again, though, I want to in particular talk about her because maybe not in this game, it might not have shown up. I just thought the growth from her was really fantastic to see. At the beginning of the year, she was getting very limited playing time, very limited exposure, and she wasn't contributing a whole lot to versus getting her very first double when we played Purdue, and multiple games then that she ended up in double figures scoring. And overall, I just enjoyed seeing Chloe Moore McNeil, and I'm excited to see her next year on trajectory. We've been talking a lot about who we're not going to see next year, but we are going to see a number of these ladies back next year. And Chloe is one of them. And I think she's going to be a big piece to the puzzle next year for us. And so I'm hopeful for her continued growth in the off season. Today wasn't her day either, but again, she got in there and she hustled after those loose balls. They didn't always come her way, but she worked her ass off, and I appreciate that, and I applaud all of their effort. And the same thing with Keandra Brown. Again, wasn't necessarily her day. It was a tough matchup for her, but she's going to be back next year as well, or at least that's the assumption we're going on right now. So overall, just a rough day for our bench. But you cannot fault any of their play on lack of effort.
No, not at all. And our team all year long. I mean, our bench hasn't been huge contributors all year. I mean, Chloe has contributed, and Keandra. I mean, they definitely have contributed, but not to the extent that UConn does. I mean, and like you had said, I mean, they're just it's just a different team, different setup. And so today, I mean, obviously that their bench outscored ours 13-1. But you can't. Once again, I mean, you look at the stat lines, and it's not going to tell you the whole game. Those girls, they played their heart out, and to UConn's credit again, I mean, they played good defense, and it's just we couldn't get the shots off, and that's something else that we'll talk about here shortly.
Yeah, great segue. I think we're done with meaningful moments, unless there's anything else that we haven't really talked about that you really want to pull up or bring up.
I think no, I think we've covered it.
Okay, a little bit different today. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't warn you about that. Surprise, everyone. All right. Well, next it's time to go inside the numbers. We've been hitting that as we've been going along here, so maybe we'll just pick out a few and not again belabor this again. At this point, I think it's it's kind of moot with the season being over. So maybe I'll just talk about the two I think that are most glaring, Shawn, and then if there's anything you want to add, we certainly can.
Absolutely.
So I think the absolute number one big stat that we need to talk about is the rebounding. We had 27 rebounds to their 39. The big story of the game, though, was offensive rebounds. We got 2. contrast that to 15 for UConn. And if you go back now to the start of the Princeton game, so our last 2 games, we got out rebounded on the offensive end. We had 3 offensive rebounds in those 2 games to 25 total. And unfortunately, ESPN doesn't give us the second chance shots or points. And we don't have our normal stat page that we have. So I'll see if I can find that while you're talking, Shawn. But the offensive rebound to me was probably the biggest glaring hole. And it wasn't something that they didn't know about. So if you listen at all to Coach Morin's press conferences throughout the week or watch anything that she says on Twitter, she highlighted that offensive rebounding and keeping UConn off of that offensive glass was going to be key. And we just couldn't seem to do it. We had, again, they had 15 and 10 of those came from just 2 of their players. So that to me is probably the biggest glaring stat that we have. The other one is turnovers. So again, we as a team have a goal of 11 and today we ended up with 15 and a big chunk of those really came in the second half. I think we had 7 and then another 8 in the second half. So I guess it was more even split than I thought. But to me, turnovers was also a name of the game, and we only turned UConn over 9 times. So, it was a little bit lopsided for us there. What else do you have, Shawn? Anything else you want to highlight? Oh, I got points in the paint here.
Yeah.
So UConn had 46 points in the paint to only 32 for us. So 14-point differential and points in the paint there, and points in the paint, and then second chance points 2 to 14.
Yeah.
So those 2 stats to me, along with the turnover situation, was probably the biggest glaring gap in our game today.
Yeah, I think, and I think you're right on that. And I think the other stat that I wanted to point out was our field goal percentage. As far as the field goal percentage went, we
won that battle.
Yeah, we shot better than them. We were 47.9%. They were 46.3%. But because of all of their offensive rebounds, they were able to get 67 shots on the game. We only had 48. So they had 19 more shots than us. And a lot of that had to do with their offensive rebounds. I mean, they had 15 offensive rebounds to our 2. So the offensive rebounds and turnovers, and we've kind of been talking about that for a while now, that, when Indiana is able to clean up that, they obviously have, play better. But today they just got outplayed. And the bigger, I think the bigger lineup for UConn really dominated on the glass today, and it showed.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, Quang in the chat. Easier to get an offensive rebound if you're allowed to throw your defender to the ground.
That is very true.
That is very true. If I could just throw people around and get a rebound, it makes it so much easier. But I don't really have anything else I want to talk about on numbers anyway around. How about you?
No, I think that's good.
I think
that covers it.
Okay. Well, you're listening to the Doing the Work IU post-game show. You can catch us live immediately following most IU women's basketball games. And you can find us at our website right now at assemblycall.com. While you're there, you can also go to join.assemblycall.com and sign up for our free IU Hoops newsletter. Again, my name is Kathy Amos. I'm here with my co-host Shawn Cron, and we are breaking down Indiana's loss in the Sweet 16 to UConn. Well, Shawn, I think it's time for game balls. So why don't we go ahead and get that started, and you kick us off. Hopefully this is probably going to be an easy one, I think.
Yeah, for me, it's got to go to Allie today. I think she had a fabulous game from the very beginning. Her leadership really showed through today. I mean, she ended up with 16 points overall on 7 of 9 shooting, 2 of 3 from 3-point land. And I think she just, I was glad to see her have such a good game, being her last game with the Hoosiers, but gonna be sad to see her go.
Yeah, me too. Allie's she's had some turmoil in her basketball career, starting off at Notre Dame and a big knee injury, and then coming here. This was her 7th year playing. Evidently, according to the commentators on TV, she's only one of 2 players in NCAA to be playing with 7 years. And again, she led the team in in scoring today was 16, but she did other Allie Patberg things as well. And, she left it all out there for sure. And going out on this, again, she has nothing to hold her head down and only to hold her head high about. So I agree with giving Allie the game ball. So for our season, this is how it ends up. Grace Berger ends up with 10 of our game balls. Allie, that makes her 5th one. We have Mac and Nicole with 4 each and Alexa with 2. So now it's time for the Hoosier Hustle Award, sponsored by our friends at Evansville Security Services. Evansville Security Services provides off-duty police officers to business and individuals throughout Indiana. Remember, prevention cannot be measured, so let Evansville Security Services help you prevent a bad outcome today. Again, that's evansvillesecurityservices.com to learn more. Okay, so now it's time for the Hoosier Hustle Award. And for me, I'm going to go with Nicole Cardano Hillary for this, for my vote for Hustle. I mean, you could probably make a case as well, I think, for Grace. I mean, again, it was a struggle for her today in terms of getting the points and production that we would normally see from her, but she didn't quit on the hustle side of it at all. She never did, but you can say that about everyone. Nicole, I thought, just really played some fantastic defense for us. She was a pest, again, as usual, and being her last game as well, I like to honor that. I think she's been kind of our honorary hustle award person, it seems like, all year, even though maybe she hasn't won the most of them. It always seems like her name is always talked about, whether we give the hustle award to her or not. So for me, I'm voting for Nikki.
Yeah, I'm going to vote for Nikki as well. I love the way that she plays, and as Quang had pointed out in the chat, you got to give it to her for her footwork today. So
yeah.
I mean,
literally trying to grab that ball with her foot. You can tell the soccer background, right?
Yeah, right. So, but no, I thought she had a really good game. Ended up with the 3 steals for the day, and actually had one of our 2 offensive rebounds. And so, I love watching her play, and just the peskiness on defense, and that's I'm really going to miss her in that piece of her game.
Yeah, I agree. So that does give 6 hustle awards to Nikki for the season. That ties her with Chloe, who has 6 as well. Followed right behind by Grace Berger with 5. Alexa and Allie both ended up with 2. Mac, Keandra, and Caitlin, and Grace Wagner each had 1 as well. Shawn, any other lingering storylines we haven't talked about from this specific game before we kind of talk about maybe a little bit of the season on a whole, and then maybe talk about the future as well?
I don't know. I thought we knew it was gonna be a uphill battle for our team today. But overall, I am proud of this team, and looking forward to seeing what we have next year.
Yeah, absolutely. We just got into a tough bracket, you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, UConn is just, I know they were where they were seated as a 3 seed, but again, if they would have had Beckers the whole year, I think that you would have. I'm sorry, we were the 3 seed. They were 2 seed. I think if Beckers would have been healthy for them all year, they would have easily been a 1 seed. And, you can argue that maybe that's what the NCAA committee was thinking about as well when they placed them in this Bridgeport location. It was clearly, from a crowd standpoint, stacked against us in a really hostile environment. And our women didn't shy away from it as well.
Right.
And Princeton was definitely an underseeded team as well. That gave us some trouble earlier, and we fought through that. But on a season as a whole, I'm very proud of all of these women as well. They gave us nothing ever to complain about. Nothing did we ever come on, even during their loss and at the end of that season where they're having, a rough time, kind of getting over the hump. I don't think there was one time we came on to any of these shows, whether it was you doing the show with me or Jeff, and we sat here and said, well, they just quit. Right. I've never had those words come out of my mouth. And that means a whole heck of a lot to me as a fan, that I know that the women care about the program. They care about the team, and they care about each other. And I think that's a culture that you can take from Coach Morin and continue to build upon. So overall, yes, disappointing. I was hoping to see them play yet one more time this year, but I would say if you look at a big picture for us in the season, I think this was absolutely a season we can be proud of and something to continue building upon. We'll continue to get more coverage for, I think, women's basketball. Our Indiana program specifically, we continue to see more games televised, but I think just women's basketball in general is getting a lot more coverage as well. And we're seeing that as well, because, one of the complaints, if you've ever watched women's basketball prior to this, is the parity and how a lot of these top seeded teams just really come in and just really roll over some of these lower seeded teams. And we're not seeing that this year. In fact, the first two days of the tournament had more upsets on the women's side than the first days of the men's side. We saw that last night again, where Creighton, after knocking off Iowa last week, knocked off Iowa State again and are now in the Elite Eight as a double-digit seed. So I think we're going to continue, hopefully, to see things progress as the women continue to put out a great product for basketball. And hopefully we're spreading the word, not just about our Hoosiers, but just women basketball in general. So Quang, that comeback was against Iowa when we had 42 points in the fourth quarter, right? So we have just some fantastic highlights from this year that we can go back and reflect upon, and that would definitely be one of them, even though we still didn't end up on top. But again, we were down over 20 points going into that fourth quarter, and boy, my goodness, we almost won that game. So coming up, though, for doing the work, we do have some things in the work. Jeff has been out, those of you that are our regular followers, but Jeff and I had talked about earlier in the season, we do want to continue doing shows throughout the season. So we will start highlighting maybe some roster turnover and things coming up next year. I think we know about who is leaving for sure. We know that Alexa Gulbe is going back to Europe. We know Ali Patberg is finally, after 7 years, out of eligibility. I think she is looking to get into coaching. Grace Wagner is foregoing the rest of her eligibility because she got into the Kelley School of Business graduate program, and she wants to concentrate on her schooling. And then Nicole Cardano-Hillary is also without eligibility. So she hasn't, that I have seen, specifically said where Nikki is planning on going, but I hopefully will see her somewhere on the basketball court again. We do have some folks coming in that we'll start trying to break down a little bit more. We, for those of you who don't know, we have three main recruits coming in, one from Israel called Garsan or Garkan. I'm not sure how to say her name. We'll find out officially and get that. We have one other commit coming in as a freshman from another country as well. And then we do actually have a nice transfer from Providence who had, I think, the second leading scorer this year from Providence that is opted to transfer, and she is already committed to coming to Indiana. That came out about a week and a half or two or so ago. So I think one of the things we'll do this off season is to highlight and start going into more in depth on those players that are new to the team. We'll probably talk about some of the players that once we know officially that they're coming back, and start breaking down maybe this past season, looking ahead to what we'd like to see from them. The one person we know 100% who's already said she's coming back is Grace Berger. So we'll start talking about the remaining players as they officially, hopefully, commit to coming back. And then the other thing I think Jeff and I have talked about doing, and for those of you in the chat, if you have other ideas on topics, let us know. You can send me a direct message on Twitter. Or Jeff, if you find him, you can also find us if you are in the Assembly Call community, and you can send me a direct message there as well. But the other topic we thought we might do is to go back into the history of Indiana women's basketball and to pick out a couple of important seasons that happened in Indiana basketball history. So a couple of the probably more obvious ones would be the 1983 season. We've talked about that in regards to the home field apparel shirt. That was when they won the Big Ten title. That was not expected from them at all that year. Got them into the NCAA tournament for the first time. And then most likely we'll look at the year that they won the NIT. And some other seasons probably in the more recent history that has gotten to where we are today. But we'll try to delve into the history and open up those archives of Indiana where we can learn about some past teams that were important to the history of our program that maybe not everyone knows about. So it is hard to find some stuff and content for off season. So we're open to any ideas. I doubt we'll do a weekly show. We are right now targeting to do a show every other week, but that's up in the air for, content as well as Jeff and I have an availability. And, maybe we can talk Shawn into potentially coming on and helping. So, no, we won't talk about Brad Davidson. So I think that is what we have coming up going into the off season. And then of course, I think the other thing we'll talk about as we get closer to the season is we'll start breaking down some of the other teams in the Big Ten and what we're expecting to see from them. Again, we'll have to do some research and do some of that, because who knows who's coming and going from each team. Right now, if we look at it on paper, I would say what we probably are guessing is Iowa is looking to be the favorite in the Big Ten next year. They bring back pretty much everyone on their team, including Sedano and Caitlin Clark. And that dynamic duo is just a force to be reckoned with. And they are both, I think, have announced already that they're both coming back. So right now on paper, it looks like Iowa is probably the favorite, but we'll start looking at that as, the dust kind of settles over all the teams. We still have Big Ten teams playing in the tournament right now. So we did have Ohio State lose yesterday, but I believe Michigan is either playing right now or is coming, getting on sometime soon. So please keep an eye on our other Big Ten teams that are still going on in the tournament. And yes, Coing, I agree. Clark is coming back. Crap. Yes, Caitlin Clark was only a sophomore this year. So, and Sedano had, I think, one more year with her COVID year. So Sedano is also coming back. So, but let's not end on that. Let's instead celebrate our women, again, ending up with a 24-9 record overall on the year. And just a fantastic season, back-to-back Sweet 16 berths that they really earned and just played their hearts out for us all year. So again, tell all your friends about women's basketball, especially our Indiana program. I still think there's going to be good things coming from us in the future. I know it feels like we maybe are losing a lot of key pieces, which we are, but we have a lot of pieces coming in too. And Terry Morin, as the coach, I think has shown that she has really been able to put together those pieces and get everyone bought into the culture. So with that, I'll have one last reminder that if you have not gone out to Home Field Apparel, please do so. And if it's your first time, you can use HOME, HOME, at checkout to get 15% off of your first order. But with that, Shawn, it's last call. I think we've talked a lot today, but anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just, kind of want to reiterate what you've said about this team already. I think they should hold their heads high, be very proud of what they have accomplished this year. It may not have ended, the way that they wanted to, but as a fan of IU women's basketball, I am very proud of them and everything that they've accomplished. The run that they've had in the Big Ten tournament, the run that they've had in the NCAA tournament. It's been a lot of fun to watch this year and previous years. It's watching this team grow over the last few years and watching them, what Terry Morin has done with this team. And, I think we've got nowhere to go, but, can up, she continues to put together these great teams. And, I think, we just need to keep working at it and keep getting these recruits in, and hopefully we'll be able to replace Allie and Nicole and Alexa and with some good talented players. But whoever those players are, they're going to have big shoes to fill, that's for sure. So gonna miss those girls, and just want to say how proud I am of them and of this entire team.
Yeah, these women have definitely captured our hearts, that's for sure. So my last call will be actually to all of our workaholics. Quang has been a regular for sure. We've had a few others that have been very loyal listeners. Joe, I know, has jumped in here as well quite often. And we have a lot of people on Twitter that has been helping to spread the word. It's a new podcast. So, we're using Assembly Call right now to really try to help get us up off the ground. So you might see some changes with that as we try to spin off and not use the Assembly Call channels going forward in the summer. That's still kind of being worked out to be determined kind of thing. But really a huge thank you to all those that come and miss with us live, but the people that listen to us later as well. We really appreciate it. Again, Jeff and I and now Shawn are not doing this because we're getting paid and getting giant buckets of money. We do it because we love Indiana women's basketball and we want to help support them and kind of spread the word of them. So that's why we're really looking to do some off-season content to continue to get the word out about our program. And to build that support and viewership of them. So again, if you do have any ideas on what we can do this off season, we're very open to it. Jeff and I and Shawn are not professional podcasters. We have main jobs that we do. Shawn is an accountant by trade, and I don't know what you call me, and Jeff is a teacher. So this is not something that might be our forte. So any help we can get from our listeners, we want to put out content that you enjoy and things you want to hear. So if you have anything, let us know. Additionally, if these post-game shows, if you have a suggestion for a change in the format, I know we follow pretty much the same format that the Assembly Call folks follow. Then yeah, we would love to hear any kind of suggestions you have, because we're totally open to them. Just be nice to us in your feedback. So I think that will do it. So if you do want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Right now, you can do that at youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to join.assemblycall.com to join the free email newsletter. A special thanks to John Ringer of Riggs Design for designing the Assembly Call logo. And thank you all again for listening. And we'll be back to talk hoops again this off season. So don't forget about us, and hopefully you can continue joining us. But until then, keep your elbow in and your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Thanks, everyone.